All right, so here are 10 through 15. Number 10, it tells us it's a trapezoid. And so remember that the formula for a trapezoid is going to be area equals base 1 plus base 2 times our height divided by 2. So let's highlight our bases. 6 and 11 are our bases. So we could call that base 1 and base 2. And we are missing our height. And so let's look right here. Here is our height, the perpendicular distance between the bases, but we can copy it over to create a triangle over here. So I'm going to make that a 90-degree angle, which creates a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Why is that significant? Because if this piece at the top base is 6 and this whole thing is 11, that means that this is a rectangle. And so what I can do, so my base 2, I'm actually going to put right here. Let me clean this up just a little bit to make you be able to see it a little bit better. My base 2 is the 11. That's the whole thing. But I can put a 6 right here on just this part from here to here. So what is 11 minus 6? 11 minus 6 is going to give me 4. So why does that help me out? Y'all, 11 minus 6 is not 4. Hold on. 11 minus 6 is going to give me 5. I'm thinking 45, 45, 90. So sorry, y'all. It's been a long day. Okay, so if that piece is 5, 11 minus 6 gives me 5. If that piece is 5, since this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle, then these legs must be congruent. This leg is going to be congruent to this leg. So this piece is also going to be 5. So what is my height? My height of this shape is going to be 5 because that's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. All right, so our area, if I can stay off the struggle bus, will be 6 plus 11 times my height, which we just found to be 5, divided by 2. Okay, so that 45, 45, 90 rule helped us a ton. You could use trig. You could have done this, let's see, tangent of 45 equals h over 5, and you still would have gotten 5 when you cross multiplied. But we're trying to use our rules. So 6 plus 11 times 5 for special right triangles. So when you divide that by 2, for our area, you're going to get 42.5. Now, there are not units included on this, and so we're just going to go ahead and write it out. Units squared, or you could do u squared. But that just indicates, hey, this is still in units squared. We just don't know what the units are. So regardless of what they are, if they're yards, feet, whatever, it's going to be units to the second power for area. So make sure you include your units on your test. All right, number 11 is a kite. What did we color code a kite to be? A kite is D1 times D2. And so here's the kite. Here's my formula for the area of a kite. Area equals D1 times D2. Make sure you pay attention to that. Divided by 2. So I'm going to highlight my diagonals. And then, of course, I'm just going to put what we call the fancy toothpick marker to say how long that toothpick was. It's kind of like when you go to Costco and you get samples. Sometimes they'll have little flags on them. We're just going to put a flag on this to say how long that is. So what is 10 plus 8? 10 plus 8 is going to give me 18 centimeters for this diagonal. When I highlight my other diagonal, let's just do that in pink. I think that's what we did on when we took the notes the other day. So there's one of my diagonals, my highlighter. There's one of my diagonals is 18. The other diagonal I'm going to do in pink. If I have a pink highlighter pulled. No, I do not, so I'll go yellow. So when we highlight the yellow one, that's going to be 6.5 plus 6.5. What is 6.5 plus 6.5? That is going to give me a total of 13, I believe. So that we've got our D1. We've got our flag on the other one, which tells us that this one's 13. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to do 18. Our area is going to be equal to 18. That's a horrible 18. Y'all can tell I'm tired. 18 times 13, and then that's just divided by 2. Okay. So we're going to multiply those together. We're not adding. 18 times 13 divided by 2 is going to give me an area of 117, what are my units? Centimeters squared. So 117 centimeters squared. That is going to be my area of that shape. Okay? All right, we have another kite. So exact same thing over again. Area equals D1 times D2 divided by 2. Okay? Because this shape was a kite, this other shape is going to be a kite as well. So we're going to highlight our diagonals, and then we're going to add up the pieces. So what are my, what kind of flag can I put on this one? How long is the 4 and the 4 piece? Well, 4 plus 4 gives me 8. So there's diagonal 1. My diagonal 2 is a little bit longer. It's going to be 2 plus 6.5. 2 plus 6.5 gives me a diagonal of 8.5. So there's my diagonal 2. And I'm going to multiply those together. I'm going to do 8 times 8.5 divided by 2. And again, we can color code those just to make it a little bit easier to look at. There's one diagonal. There's the other diagonal. And I'm going to find my area by multiplying those two together. So 8 times 8.5, 68 divided by 2 is going to give me an area of 34 feet squared. So if I wanted to cover this kite frame in fabric, I would need 34 feet squared to cover that entire kite. All right, let's go to number 13. Number 13 is a rhombus, meaning all of the sides are the same. So in that rhombus, we also know that in a rhombus, those diagonals are going to bisect each other. So they cut each other in half, meaning that these two blue amounts are going to be the same and these two yellow amounts are going to be the same. Those cut each other in half right here when they intersect. So when I go to add those up, if this piece is 4, this piece is also going to be 4 meters. And so when you add those together, that's 8. But I can't do that on this one when I try to put my fancy flag on the other diagonal to say how long it is. I don't know how long it is, unfortunately, because I don't have either piece. But I do know that these diagonals are going to be perpendicular to each other. So I can use Pythagorean theorem using this purple right triangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an x here, and I'm going to say, well, x squared plus 4 squared should equal 6 squared. That's the hypotenuse. So I'm going to do 6 squared minus 4 squared to move that to the other side. And I'm going to get that x is going to be equal to the square root of 20. Well, if that piece is the square root of 20, what is this piece? It's also going to be the square root of 20. So what is root 20 plus root 20? Be careful here. Root 20 plus root 20 is going to give me 2 root 20s. Okay? So when I go to do this formula, d1 times d2 divided by 2, that is going to be equal to diagonal 1 is 8. Diagonal 2 is going to be 2 root 20, and we're going to divide that by 2. So here's my blue diagonal. Here's my yellow diagonal. When you do root 20 plus root 20, it's going to be 2 root 20. If you weren't sure on the math of that, a smart thing to do would be to type into your calculator root 20 plus root 20, take that decimal, multiply by 8, and then divide by 2. But because I know that that is 2 root 20, I'm going to do 8 times 2 root 20, and I'm going to divide that by 2 and round at the very, very end. That is going to give me about 35.8, approximately, because I'm rounding it, 35 point, that is a horrible 5, y'all, 35.8 meters squared of area on this rhombus. All right, we have another rhombus on this next picture. So again, same formula, area equals d1 times d2 divided by 2. Let's highlight my diagonals. One of my diagonals is going to be 7 on the smaller piece of the diagonal, so this piece is going to be 7 as well. So what is my fancy flag going to read? That's going to be a 14 centimeter long diagonal. You add them together. Okay. Now we want to find our yellow diagonal, but I don't know either piece, so I'm going to put an x in both spots. And I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem using these pieces of a right triangle. So I know that this piece is, let's darken that just a little bit. I know that this piece is an x, and I know that this piece is an x. So we need to find x. So I'm going to do x squared plus 7 squared equals 8 squared. So x squared is going to be equal to 8 squared minus 7 squared. That's going to give me the square root of 15 for each diagonal. So if both of those pieces are the square root of 15, what happens when you add them together? Well, root 15 plus root 15 is going to give me a total of 2 root 15s. And so when I go to put that in my formula, my area is going to be equal to one of the diagonals, which is 14, times my second diagonal, which is 2 root 15, and I'm going to divide that by 2. So there's my yellow diagonal, there's my blue diagonal. Y'all know I love to color code. So 14 times 2 root 15, and I'm going to divide that by 2, round at the very, very, very end, round to the nearest tenth, it says, so 54.2 centimeters squared. So we want to round at the end, and so that way we do not, we have the most precise answer we could possibly have by rounding to the nearest tenth at the end. Okay? All right, what is my last shape? So we had 2 rhombi. What was the rhombus? Was light blue, so let's color code that just for my people looking at the answer key. So this was a rhombus. This was a rhombus. The last one is another kite, so I think I did that in dark blue for the kites. That way it matches the formulas. Okay, so what is the formula for the area of a kite? d1 times d2 divided by 2. So let's go ahead and trace my diagonals. My long diagonal is going to be the blue one that I'm going to do. This, it gives me 15 here. So this piece is 15. I'm going to write on top of it. I don't know this piece, so we're going to try to find that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and highlight my other diagonal first to see if that helps me. If this piece is 8, remember that in a kite, the short diagonal gets bisected. So if this is 8, this is 8. and then that becomes a short diagonal of 16. That's my D2. How does that help me find my D1? Well, now I can use, we know that the diagonals of a kite are perpendicular, so I can go x squared plus 8 squared equals 10 squared. And so I'm going to do 10 squared minus 8 squared, and that's going to be 36. So x is going to be equal to the square root of 36. Well, that is a perfect square, so that's just going to be 6. You could plug in the square root of 6 for that, or the square root of 36 for that, and it'd be the same thing. But we're going to simplify that to 6. So what is that diagonal total? What is 6 plus 15? That's going to give me a diagonal of 21. So that's going to be my D1. So when I plug that in, that's going to be 21 times 16 divided by 2. 21 times 16 is 336, and you divide that by 2, and I get 168 centimeters squared for the area of this kite. So I will do a new video for the back page.